right, Don. So I've been reading your book, and I came across the story of you getting your first car. Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Yeah, it was pretty painful. Anyway, yeah, my first car was a 1936 Ford Roadster. You know, I was like 14 and a half. My dad let me buy it. I had a paper route, and I worked part-time at the gas station. And he said, you can put it in the garage, in our garage at home, and he said, you can work on it there as long as you keep the place clean, and I'll help you. My dad was a pretty good mechanic. He was an engineer, and but he wanted me to be able to do it myself. So we worked on it and worked on it, and it was really coming along pretty good. We finally got it to the point where it ran, and he helped me tune it and get it, running better. And then we were working on the body, and it was in the summertime, and my family, we lived in Chicago, and my family, we had a vacation home with my aunt up in Wisconsin, and they said, we're going to go and take a 2-week vacation, and we're going to leave you home with your grandmother. But I'm going to tell you right, my dad told me, I'm going to tell you right now, don't take that car out. You don't have any insurance. You don't have a driver's license. You don't have anything. He said, we could lose our house if you get in an accident. He said, you leave that thing there, and then when we come back, we'll work on it together, and then when you get your license, you can drive it. Okay, Dad, I won't drive it. But of course, being a motorhead and being 15 and a half, I guess I was, I said, nobody's going to know if I take this out. So we had an alley that ran behind all the garages in our neighborhood. And so I opened the garage door up, and I fired her up and drove her down to the alley and around the block and came back in and put it right away, And I felt pretty good about myself and thought nobody would ever know. But when my parents came home, it was about 2 or 3 days later, my dad said, hey, come here a minute. I said, okay, Dad, what's up? And he goes, did you take that car out while we were gone? And I said, oh, no. He said, you're a liar. And you know what happens to liars? They get punished. And he said, your punishment is I'm going to take that car and sell it. I said, you can't do that, Dad. We've been working on it for... He said, that's a good lesson, isn't it? And my dad took that car out of the garage and took it up to the corner used car lot and sold it. I was crushed. I was beyond crushed. And I hardly even talked to my father for months. I'd answered his questions and stuff like that, but I was just completely crushed. But when I came around to being 16, I was ready to get my driver's license. He wouldn't let me go get a driver's license. And then after about a month, he said, okay, I'll take you up and you can get a driver's license. You can drive my car for the license test, and then you're going to come home. Okay, I did that. And I was thinking to myself, well, what good's having a driver's license if you don't have a car, or you can't drive a car? So he said, don't drive anybody else's car either because you don't have any insurance. Okay, Dad. So I really want you to learn a lesson. Oh, I've learned my lesson. Well, about 2 months later, he came home one time that night, and he said, come on out in the garage, I want to show you something. So we went out in the garage, and he opened the door, and here he had bought me another car with the money he got for my car. But the car he bought made me want to throw up. I went, oh, no. It was a 1946 Chevrolet 4-door sedan. I thought, that's a grandma's car. That's not a hot rod, But I didn't dare say a word because I said, well, thank you, Dad. This is mine. And he said, yeah, and I spent a little of that money and got you some insurance, so you can drive it. And I was thinking to myself, my God, I was in high school. I don't want to drive that to high school and have everybody see me drive that for it. And, but I did, and I had driven it a couple of weeks, and this is the real hat trick here. There was a man down the street from us that he was from Great Britain, and he had just moved in. He had a family, and he had a motorcycle, and he really needed a car. And he came over to me one day, and he said, I talked to Mr. Hoffman, and he said, you don't like your car. And I said, no, I don't. He said, well, would you want to trade? And I said, for what? And he said, for a motorcycle. And I, oh, boy, anything. And it was a real nice motorcycle, I thought. It was a British motorcycle. And I said, yeah, I want to trade. And I told my dad that I'm going to trade for a motorcycle. And my mother went nuts. You know, she said, absolutely not. You're not going to ride a motorcycle. You got hurt on a motorcycle already, you know, playing around. I said, Mom, I want to trade this. And my dad went along with me. He backed me up. He said, hey, it's his car. If he wants to trade for a motorcycle, let him trade for a motorcycle. So the whole thing transpired. And at the time, I had no idea of the value of the motorcycle. I just wanted to get something besides that 46 Chevy. And I drove it to school for about 2 weeks, and it was nasty, that motorcycle. Half the time I had to push start it, and it was a Vincent Black Shadow. Now, all of you guys out there in television land can look and see, or Google it. A Vincent Black Shadow would have been worth about $250,000 nowadays. But I didn't know that, and I got rid of it. I traded it and $50 for a 1950 Mercury. That's the story.